Good morning, everyone. We are waiting on our first speaker. She will be here momentarily. So while we wait, I invite you to go to the room next door. They're offering free flu shots, COVID shots, and tetanus vaccines because every farmer needs a tetanus vaccine because ain't no telling what we're going to step on out there. So they are offering those right next door. If you wanted to go ahead and get your vaccinations, your flu shots, or anything like that, it's free. And they can help you out over there, and we will be with you again shortly.
Okay, we gonna now just well. First of all, I'm gonna say good morning. We hope everyone has enjoyed and had a learning experience during the conference. I want to say thank you for attending, and we wish that you come back next year. Now, I only ask one thing, that you bring somebody with you. That you bring someone with you. Okay? Now, as everybody have the agenda, and we have water quality is in our hands, making a documentary with Dr. Nancy Dawson and Dr. Christopher Rapley, Albany State University. So at this time, so that we'll stay on track and they'll have time to do their presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dawson and Dr. Rapley. And also working with them too, and I'm sorry, is Mrs. Gay Broadwater. They all are not, Dr. Dawson and Ms. Broadwater are no strangers to Kentucky State University. And we're so delighted to have them today. So at this time, Ms. Broadwater.
Good morning, everyone. I want to say how nice it is to see some old familiar faces and also to see a lot of new faces as well. I know this conference is one of the highlights of the year for this program, and we're honored to be a part of this. Dr. Dawson wrote a grant over 2 years ago to the National Association of State Administrators of Agriculture, Secretaries of Agriculture Foundation. They actually have an arm called a foundation where they award grants, a nonprofit. That grant fund came through EPA, and you understand the past year has been kind of up and down. We've been concerned that they would be allowed to complete the grant, but they have been, and so that pleases us very much. Last year at this conference, we met with several of you to learn about water on your property, your farm property. And since then, the project has evolved into actually documenting some of those efforts. So in a little while, you're going to hear a brief interview that has been recorded that'll be packaged into a longer documentary film. But what we wanted to also do today was share some of the things we've learned through the efforts of this project, which has been primarily focused in Western Kentucky, but not completely. Okay? So I would like to hear just briefly from all of you in the room. How many of you have a pond on your farm? Okay. How many of you have a stream running through your farm? And how many of you have well water that you drink? So you know that water is critical to your everyday life, your health, your well-being, and those ponds and those streams especially can give you fits when we get rain like we've been having here in Kentucky in large amounts. It doesn't seem to understand it's supposed to come in, regular smaller amounts, but we can't control that. But the other piece to that is our well water. We want to make sure it stays fresh and clean and not contaminated. And even in our small communities, water can be affected, and we're learning the infrastructure to our small towns and areas are also being affected by the quality of the water itself. So we put together this resource guide that's being passed around. And it's just one way that this project has produced something that we hope is useful to you. It shows you where federal assistance can be tapped. It shows you where there's different places in the state, and also with some of the articles that have been written about, particularly with black farmers. And for some reason, I have forgotten to say the most important thing, and that is Cherokee. Is the Cherokee Historical Park Friends Group wrote that grant, and I'm amiss in not saying that beforehand. But what we wanted to do, again, is put this in your hands for you to have, but we also later in our time that we have with you and individually throughout the rest of the day is hear from you and talk to you and learn about how you're managing your water resource on your property. So with that said, do we have the video ready to go? Okay, so we're going to show a brief video to give you an idea of how this film is being put together, and then we'll come back and hear some stories from you as a full group, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. So I guess we can roll the film.
I'm Marion Simon. When I worked at KSU, my goal was to help farmers to be better farmers, improve their income, and improve their family living and their quality of life. To do that, we set up meetings in many counties. We developed the Third Thursday educational program where farmers could come and county agents every month for updates into new activities. We started this conference so that farmers in West Kentucky could meet farmers from East Kentucky, and several of the farmers, particularly the African American farmers, did not know that African American farmers were beyond Louisville. However, most of our farmers are west of Louisville. So we tried to put the people together that needed to know each other.
My name is Lee Graves. I'm the proud owner of the Graves Farm in Adair County, Kentucky. I've been a farmer now for about 15 years. I raise beef cattle, okay? That's the only thing that I raise. I raise a little bit of hay and I cut a little bit of hay. I buy mainly my hay from other people.
So how important is water to your farm?
It's very important. One, I don't have a stream on my farm. I have a lot of ponds, but they're dry. And what they did, right, when they came out and put my water fountains in, what they did, they fenced the water ponds off, okay? So the animals would not get in the pond and contaminate the water, okay? So they put a fence around it.
My name is Lonzo Ballou, and I'm with Ballou Farms in Richmond, Kentucky.
And how long have y'all been farming?
I am actually third generation. My grandfather started bought the first farm back in the early 30s.
And so how many waterways are on your farm?
We've got 2 waterways that lead to the Kentucky River on our farm, backside of both tracks.
So historically, how have you kept the waterways clean? What have you done?
We have to continuously monitor these streams because trees will fall and other debris will wash down into these streams. So we have to continuously monitor and clean those streams physically by hand. And a lot of it's done that way because access with equipment is really hard to get to some of those areas in those streams.
To give you a little big background on where our farm is located at, we are located in the Todd County area, which is in the mid-southern, right on the Tennessee line. But the little area that town is close to is called Guthrie, Kentucky. Well, Todd County is got 2 type of terrain, and one area we live in is in what we call the limestone area. So yes, we depends on the water, and most of the time we was on well water when we had for the family farm. But we also got these things considered sinkholes that's located in karst areas.
So what is a sinkhole?
A sinkhole is a depressing area that actually feeds the underground water. Rivers, I call them, are tributaries. And they'll fall in what they call the karst areas that's there. And we have some of them that we have established that are located on our farm. And so we're really concerned about subsurface water entering into our groundwater safely. So back in the old days, they used to say, oh, let's take a sinkhole, let's throw all our garbage, our dumps, and the whole works. After getting more educated about the situation and how it could pollute our groundwater, that's something we stopped.
Is farming difficult?
It is. It's a very difficult task. Not only just labor-wise, but sometimes the headache of the cost that's going into it on the return of what you're getting out of it. A lot of people don't see the money side of farming.
Well, if you look at worldwide, and then you have to ask yourself, how many black farmers is still farming? It's just like, this is what happens to most of the black farmers. If we had got the resources that they got, a lot of the black farmers would still be farming.
So I was just talking to Mr. Miller, and he was talking about that the resources for black farmers and white farmers is different. Is that true?
That is true.
So how is it true? Tell me.
A lot of what happens is when we go for materials, supplies, fertilizers, things like that, when we ask for those materials, we may get them, but when we get them, they're not what our counterparts would receive. So when we do our applications, they don't come in the same way as our counterparts do. When you say, I want 3.5 ton of lime to the acre, I pay for 3.5 ton lime to the acre. My yield or my pH test should come back balanced. When it doesn't, which means I didn't get the same resources as my counterpart did.
I remember you years ago when you was just a teenager. And so now you have a job with what? The NRCS?
I work for the United States Department of Agriculture, Natural Resource Conservation Service.
So what do you do with them?
I am a soil conservation technician. I do a lot of the surveying. I'm usually the first person you see when we meet farmers. I do our farm visits, get out with the farmers and see what kind of resource concerns that they have, and we get our heads together and try to come to a compromise on how we can fix those things.
Well, see, we don't farm anymore, so, and my husband passed away, and so he was mostly the, of the farm. So a lot of the stuff I don't really know.
So resources. People been talking a lot about resources today. So are there differences in the resources that black farmers have versus the resources that white farmers have?
Damn right, they do.
So can you talk about that?
They do. If you don't have the resources, you cannot run a farm, period. You can't run one. There's no way that you can run one and make a living on it, okay? When you can go to the bank, and the bank, right, you have to have some type of collateral every time you go to the bank to get resources. You're not gonna last very long, okay? Because they know how much money, okay, that they can actually give you, okay, or loan you that you can pay back. Now, you know that you can pay it back, but getting the money.
So, Dr. Simon, we was discussing water and quality in black farmers. And in fact, we was interviewing people earlier, and whenever I said water quality, they start talking about inequality. So, you said fencing. You can usually tell the difference between a black farm and a white farm based on their fencing. What does that mean?
It means that when you look at your farm, some people spend what they have to make a living, and some people try to stretch it and have more loans. But when you look at a black farm, you'll tend to see less weed eating around the fences, less care of the fences than the white farmer, who really is more interested in, oh, don't you think my farm looks beautiful, rather than this farm is my income. And I don't have to make it pretty. I can just make it suffice for what I need. That's also the case of many of the tenant farmers. They just don't have the money to make it fun, to make it pretty. So they let it go, as they don't weed eat around it, and they don't do all this other stuff, just which is takes time and money, but especially time just to make it look pretty.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go in the next 10 or 20 years? How do black farmers get out of this?
I think first they need to look at their farm's assets and the assets of their community. For example, do they have to use city water or purchase water, or is there water for their crops available either in a farm pond or on the creek next to them? Need to say how much money can I spend on water? And then you think about the water quality, but really a lot of times it's just water in general that you need for your crop. Livestock, they might need a little cleaner water, but the main thing is water is extremely important, because if they don't have anything to drink, you're not going to have any animals, you're not going to have any plants. And if everything depends on city water or purchased water, the smaller farmers can't afford it. We went to work with a African-American farmer, and he was having just a terrible production year. And when we looked, they had never fertilized any crops, never run any soil test, nothing. So the tobacco was about this tall. We recommended that he hire somebody, and it cost him $500 to hire somebody to come and irrigate his tobacco. That amount of irrigation for 4 days brought that tobacco back to where it was over 6 feet tall, and their income for the tobacco, they had so much tobacco, they filled up their barns, their neighbors' barns, and their temporary structures. But they did not know that you needed to fertilize it and water it.
Am I on now? Okay. Thank you. Mr. Rapley put that together in the last 24 hours. Give him a hand. We still have more testimonies we want to collect, but we want to hear from you right now. We have a microphone we can pass around, and I would like to hear from some people who have experienced flooding on their property from their streams or ponds, how they've managed it. So we have a couple people back there, Jane and, I'm sorry, I don't know the other person. How long do we have?
Okay, we have a Bacon Creek in Bonneville, Kentucky floods on our hay fields, but how we manage that is we're going to stop doing hay on those fields. It's easier to buy hay at this point than us do it ourselves. And I'm going to do pasture rotation on off seasons when it doesn't flood, but it's literally stick a post in the ground, put electric fence up, put the cattle on there for a little bit, and then rotate them to the next field. I think that's going to be my answer for my flooding and the bottom field. In the summertime, I do take a small section, and I did not do it this year, but I have been very, very successful in growing pumpkins because it's very sandy soil, and the pumpkins love it. I don't know if that helps or answers, but that's kind of...
We want to hear how you're experiencing this and how you're dealing with it. So, and did you get any advice from any of the agencies, or did you come up with this from talking to other farmers, or how did you decide on your strategy?
I don't like TV. I love YouTube, and I watch a lot of YouTube on farming. My husband says no more dirt TV. I'm obsessed. I want to learn, so that's why I love YouTube, and I love homesteading mentality. And I did not learn from, there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name. He gave me some great suggestions. He's retired from extension office, and I talked to him about planting trees on the creek because I don't like erosion. I'm very funny about erosion. And so he gave me some great suggestions, but most of it's just common sense in my world. I think it's common sense.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Who else wants to tell a story real quick? We'll get you next, sir.
I live on a creek, and when I bought the farm 40 years ago, they said it had only flooded once in the whole time he'd lived there for 75 years. And it flooded 3 times this spring. It went 80 feet wide. My creek, I can walk under. I can walk under the bridge over the creek. It went over the bridge, left a ton of debris and logs, and went 85 feet wide and took out half of my driveway and brought everybody else's driveway down to underneath my bridge and clogged it up. And my solution is just, there's nothing. I tried planting bamboo 35 years ago, and that's the worst mistake I ever made because it does hold the stuff back, and now it's spread enormously. I think that my neighbors they put in a subdivision above my house, cleared about 300 acres of woods, and now I flood all the time, and there's nothing I can do about it. A guy on our farmer's market got a new hoop house and did raised beds for his 3,000 tomato plants, and we got so much rain in a short period of time, he had to bring in pumps because Maria's standing on the raised beds, and the water's halfway up her boots, trying to pump out. He lost about 1,000 tomato plants because of the flood. And he says, well, my only solution is plant in a different place.
Are you planning? Am I turned off? Can you hear me? Okay. Somebody in your county planning and zoning didn't take into consideration what the subdivision was going to do to your property. Is that accurate? Okay. Okay.
That when they zone it for a subdivision.
Well, it's something to consider. It's not just you on your property. It's systems adjacent. So, Joni, there was a gentleman over here.
Raise your hand again.
He's over there.
Oh, okay, sorry. Hold it out.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, I'm Ronald Bunton. We farm down in Simpson County, down on the Warren-Logan-Simpson County line, and we have problems with sinkholes and to keep the cattle and things away from us. So we went in and put in new fences because actually we're the only blacks that's farming in our area. So we didn't want to look like we were stuck out like sore thumbs. So we went in putting up plank fences, new woven wire fences and things like that. And to keep the cattle out of the sinkholes, we put rock into the sinkholes, not crushed stone rock from the rock quarry. And that keeps the cows out and helps the water because we do have flooding in our area at times. And in order to not fence off every sinkhole, we just put rock in there and it lets the cattle walk over top of it, and that helps a whole lot.
How did you determine that was going to be your strategy?
Oh, through NRCS.
Okay.
They came out and assessed things for us, and just like they kind of told us what we need to do, how to do it, and we had a program, and they went through a water plan situation with us also. Okay. And then they come out so often and check the sinkholes and make sure that we did have enough rock in it so the water would filter through it to help keep it purified and clean. Because in our area, we don't have a lot of ponds, and so they were receiving a lot of groundwater. And so in order to keep it halfway clean and not being contaminated real bad, we put rock in the sinkholes.
Thank you. Thank you. Joni just went up here.
If it echoes, you're too close to that mic.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tony Brooks. My wife and I, Emlyn, are at Turner Brooks Farm. Turner Brooks with an S. You may want to. I'm sorry? Well, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank all of you. But speaking of small, you said Small Farmer of the Year, right? There are two corrections. I told you never give the microphone to an English teacher. I told you all that last night. So you may want to take out a pen or pencil and correct your program. It's not Turner Brook Farm, it's Turner Brooks Farm, because we are the Brookses, and so you would have to add an S. And you said Farmer of the Year, so once again, you're gonna have to make the correction and add an ES, and it's Farmers of the Year, because for too many years, women have been overlooked. And so we're gonna make sure that doesn't happen. And as an English teacher, and I'm gonna be brief, I'm sorry, and I'm gonna get to the water problem. But first of all, I want to address the discrimination problem. The discrimination problem is systemic and it's historical, because when we first came here, my wife said, you have a farm in Kentucky, why aren't you farming? I've never farmed before. So we came here to get into the hemp program, to plow up an acre to plant hemp. Problem is, no tractor, okay? Not only did we not have a tractor, even when we got it, I didn't know how to drive it, because I'd never done it before. So before we got the tractor, I knocked on my neighbor's door and said, you know, sir, I know you've got a tractor. Would you mind plowing an acre for us? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And even crazier than that, when I brought my two young sons here for the first time and he showed them how to use a tractor, his wife turned to me and said, I guess you can get more for them now. I guess you can get more for them now. Well, the Nolans on Nolan Road happen to be the same Nolans when we celebrate our family reunion. Brooks, Ballou, Nolan, Simpson are the same Nolans that Captain Nolan had owned my family members. So it's historical racism, from slavery to Jim Crow to civil rights, and unfortunately, you know, when Kentucky State started, because we couldn't go to UK. When my father didn't play basketball for UK because Brown versus Board of Education in '54, he graduated in '51. He couldn't go to UK by law. So sometimes when you look at going to FSA or NRCS, we went to NRCS, and this is not a value judgment on anybody, and I want to continue the English lesson by adding an S, adding ES, which makes it plural. We live in a pluralistic society. Let's get over this white and black thing. The world is bigger than that, which I learned when I left Kentucky State and somebody said, would you like to teach in Miami? And when I went to Miami, I saw a guy with dark skin who I thought was black. So I said, yo, man, what's up? He didn't say anything. I thought it was volume. Yo, man, what's up? He didn't say anything. Coming from a pluralistic environment that's not practicing pluralism in Kentucky in my education, I had no idea that this guy did not speak English. That was the situation, which was a problem for me, but not for him, because he's ready for a global society, which we need to get our children ready for. But when I go into NRCS and the secretary has a husband who has the company that when I get the cost share, he's going to put in the, hook me up to city water, to my water feeders. We came on the farm and we've got this big leak. Long story short, the pipes bursted, water main. We've got water everywhere on this new water feeder system for the cattle. Major problem. You're talking about money for investing in such a system, and then Have you ever had water running on your farm for 24 hours and you didn't know it? When we don't live on the farm. And then somebody to come and repair it and say, you know, this looks like old PVC. You know, all of this is a drastic learning experience, but it's also connected to systemic racism, which goes back historically. You know, I hate to see politicians and people use us put us against each other to divide and conquer, to enrich themselves. You know, as I said last night, you know, when I finally started to do my genealogy, and I found out that maybe, you know what, you're probably kin to some of the white Nolans. But then, even further than that, the Nolans aren't white, they're European. You know, the other people are not black, they're African, you know, of African descent. And being born, me and my sisters being born at Berea College Hospital, when it was Berea College Hospital, and my grandfather being John Fee Moran, named after the founder of Berea College, and them living beside Berea College, and because of the day law, none of them being able to attend Berea College. Even being named, even the founder of Berea College told my great-grandfather, you just had a son, I'd be honored if you named him after me. And he did. But the founder of Berea College, none of my great-grandfather's grandchildren were able to attend Berea College because somebody, Senator Carl Day, was at the train station and saw a white woman and a black woman together hugging each other because they were friends, and he said, that cannot happen. So they went to court and resegregated Berea College. I say all that to say that when I walk into that office, that NRCS office or that FSA office, or I speak to any of you, I can look in your face before you even answer the question about resources, whether or not I'm going to get any resources from you. Because we are not accessing the resources that we have for each other. We are standing in our own way. Because if African Americans in the state of Kentucky are 15% of the population, if you've got change for $1, well, give them the 15%, and you keep the what? Huh? If it's $1 and you take 15 cents out of it, what do you have left? Give them the 15%, and you still are the majority. You still have most of the resources. Why would you even fight? Just like, and I'm gonna stop here. But the reason I always talk to you about what I'm going to do for kids is because how can African American young men in Lexington be about 15 or 14% of the population and they're killing each other, shooting each other? Because we are not accessing the resources that we have to put them someplace other than a lack of hope and full of despair. There is no reason on earth that anybody in the richest country in America should be homeless and not have and be food insufficient. Before we leave this, well, the conference is over, but this is third Thursday, but it's an extension of the conference. Before we leave here today, I demand that we in this room stop this problem and come up with some solutions.
Can you turn, am I on now? Okay. So what I want to do is get some feedback from you about the film. What else should be in that film that's not there now? Because we're still gathering interviews. Who and what would you like to see included in the film? So they can go some direction. Yes, sir.
Jody, this is the person that you were talking about that helped you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to say something to the group of folks here this morning. I retired from NRCS. I worked for them for about 45 years. I was an engineer for them. I have a few comments and a little bit of advice to you folks when you go into our offices. And this is just my suggestion. When you go into our office, go in there, of course, very smooth, quiet, polite. Take your notepad with you. You write down the time, the date you go in that office, and who you talk to. Make sure you keep that record. It's very important. And don't be intimidated because you don't know. You go in there because you don't know. You have already paid for our services when you pay your taxes. And you can get the help there that you need if you are very diligent and persistent and just keep going and asking questions, because they have qualified people there to help you on various levels, on the local level, on the state level, and on the national level. So it's there for you. And I would say that if you go in there and be very persistent and just very determined, quiet and polite, you will get what you need, and more than you need, because they know a lot. They know a lot. And I worked in about 89 of the 120 counties as their engineer for about 45 years. So anything I can add or help to shed light on this, I shall, because we did lots of work with water, air, and soil. And you can always tell our work if you see a pond with fence around it and a tank below it. That's probably one of the ponds that we had some input on. And if you see dams built in the state of Kentucky with lakes behind them of medium size, we probably did that. We were the second biggest dam builders in the U.S. The Corps was the first. We're the second. And channel building. We did lots of channel work in the U.S. There was lots of flooding, and we worked on that, especially in Todd, Christian, and Ohio counties. And a lot of the guys I work with, I see some of them at this conference. Mike Andrews, he was here. I worked with him and several others. We had a lot of fun together. Of course, there's discrimination. There's always going to be discrimination. But figure out ways to get what you want and go around that. Don't let it stop you. People are human. They like to work with people that look like them. You can't help it because you happen to be born black, Chinese, or Caucasian. So get what you need, be polite, persistent, and you will get the help that you need. And we did a lot of work on fencing off the streams to keep the cattle out of them, a lot of pipeline and tanks, and lots of spring developments. I worked in Christian County with a lot of very nice folks, and we did a lot of ponds and a lot of springs. And that's one of my favorite things, to develop a spring. And I have seen cattle, if you have spring water there and city water there, they will go to the spring water every time. It's better water. So anything I can say to shed light on some of these items, I'll be glad to do so. Thanks for hearing me rattle on.
Thank you. Well, okay, we have one more hand over here, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Rapley to come up and share briefly his experience about filming some of you based on the fact that he's not worked in this field and what insights he got, and then I'll have Dr. Dawson close it out. Is that okay?
I just want to add to what he said. With the NRCS, I ended up getting a high tunnel in 2016, but I was told about it in 2012, and I showed up every single spring, and they knew me, but I was polite and nice. But I didn't get approved till 2016. But it took going in. She knew I was serious. I wasn't going to let it slide, and I got it. So be tenacious, and I've always been known to be tenacious.
Thank you. Mr. Rapley, you want to come up? I'll get the mic.
Good morning. First of all, I want to say it's indeed an honor to even be here. Yesterday, I met a lot of great people. And being a filmmaker and hearing some of the stories, it truly touched me, especially the one with Miss Massey, which you're going to hear a whole lot more and see much more of, because of how, just like her, I lost my wife, and she lost her husband. So, you know, that was a bond in itself. You know, we started off when I got hired to do this film. It started off about water quality, but then somehow it just morphed into inequality. But, you know, I'm one to believe that if we work together, we can all be better. So when Dr. Simon, you know, spoke and twice and was, you know, actually talking about some of the things that she saw with over her 40 years as far as how, you know, African Americans have had to deal with certain situations, that also gave me hope, because she could honestly just turn her head, walked away, and don't care. But she do. So thank you, Dr. Simon. And I just want to say, Dr. Nancy Dawson met me several years ago when my only camera was an iPhone in Albany, Georgia. You're looking at a guy that, when she met me, I had a part-time business, working full-time at DHL. And one day she called me. I never forget. Dr. Dawson called me. It was probably a year later. And she called me a couple of times. I didn't even answer the phone. And I'm going to tell you why. And this is what she said to me. You didn't answer the phone. You must have thought I was a bill collector. And I did thought she was a bill collector. So, but I really want to thank her for believing in me. And like I said, I started from driving truck, started my own business. She's one of my mentors. I decided to go to film school. Then I went to journalism school, got my master's, did all that in less than 3.5 years, and now I'm teaching at Albany State. So it's wonderful. And for everyone who say Dr. Rapley, I'm not a doctor yet. I'm working on it. So I'm one of those to say that, you know, when you believe, you can achieve. And I just want to make sure that we all in here continue to believe and achieve unity. Thank you.
when we started to do this, I'm just coming off dialysis today, so that's why I'm kind of messed up. I'm talking, but we started to do this documentary one way, and during the process, just like how you guys acted, you were saying all the things, people got emotional about it. I mean, it's the story of the black farmer in America. It's a complicated story. And even though I tried to stick with the research questions, all the farmers just we was trying to talk about water quality. But the African American farmers started talking about racial inequality. I don't care what I try to do, the conversation went to racial inequality. And I think that's a story. And even though I didn't want to, that's just how it happened. And you know what? I'm going to start trying to do more films, documentaries. This is only a beginning, but I'm going to try to do more because the story needs to be told. The story of the black farmer in America needs to be told. My great-grandfather was a farmer. The story needs to be told. And our story is not told. It's not told. That's all.
So thank you all for participating in this conversation. I hope the conversation continues throughout the day. I know that Mr. Rapley will come around maybe, and Dr. Dawson may want to interview some of you individually and just share some of the comments you've shared here. And some of you that didn't get a chance to speak, we'd still like to hear from you. And like she said, it's a complicated story, but it's one that others need to hear and to make it an educational tool for us. So thank you for your time, your feedback, and your endurance, because what you do requires the marathon approach. It's not just a sprint. You all are in it for the long haul, so thank you so much. While we're waiting for the next presenter, if you didn't get a copy of the resource guide, we have more. If you see something that's missing in the resource guide, please let us know so we can make sure it's as complete as possible. Jane, you had a question. Well, I think that's another conversation you all need to have, and you all know the assignment, so I'll just leave it at that.
I'm supposed to speak at 11, that's why I'm here. Is this mic working? Maybe it is. Before I get started, I'm going to ask you a question, simple question. And if your answer is yes, I'd appreciate if you raise your hand. How many of you are interested in starting a small vegetable farm in order to supplement your income or make that your number one source of income? Would you, if any of you are interested in that, would you raise your hand? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I know you. Okay. I got 9 people here. Now, follow-up question. Of those who raised your hands, how many of you are from Kentucky? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. I have a program called Farming for Cash that's going to help you, train you for that purpose. And I don't care who calls me, so I will share my cell phone number. It's 502-209-0838. Even if you call me saying that I owe money to you, that's okay, all right? That's okay, because you're going to get that from me. But if you want to be part of Farming for Cash and learn what we have planned for trainings for people, please send me a text message. My name is Sid Dasgupta. Just call me Sid, S-I-D. 502-209-0838, okay? In your text message, say what your name is, where you live, if you're interested in learning about vegetable production and sales, and if you have any land where we can do this. All right, now, let's get into my presentation. I do have a lot of information in here. If you want this presentation to review later, come see me and give me your email address. I'll be glad to send it to you, okay? All right. So the title of the presentation, I know is a little cut. It's called Income from Small and Microscale Vegetable Farming. Can you make any income? Well, let's find out. So I'm talking about acre and sub-acre vegetable farming, which means farming, say, up to an acre of land. Now, some folks may not understand how big an acre is. An acre is 43,560 square foot, okay? Many of these buildings that you're sitting now will fit in 1 acre, okay? An acre can be an awfully big piece of land, all right? And a tremendous amount of vegetables can be grown in an acre. I live in Ohio, where the farms are 500, 600, 1,200 acres, okay? So when I talk about acre farming of vegetables, you know, people just snicker at me. But I have some information that I think you're going to like about acre and sub-acre. Sub-acre means smaller than an acre. All right. So I'm going to tell you some of the characteristics of the beginning farmers that I'm familiar with. They typically struggle with the lack of land. They often don't have the right amount of land or the right type of land. They don't have money to get started in farming. That's called the lack of capital, okay? And many of them don't have labor. The only labor they have is themselves, and they have a job, okay? So they really are weekend and evening farmers, all right? So when you put those 3 things together, what it means is that these individuals who are interested in farming, they can produce only small quantities of stuff to sell. It would be maybe a pickup truck load, maybe a pickup truck and a trailer load, but it's not going to be ever a tractor trailer load, okay, of vegetables. And that the quantity of vegetables you're producing has a direct impact of how you sell it, how much money you can make, all of that are like a jigsaw puzzle. They're all connected together. All right. So I did a survey of beginning farmers in Ohio. I used to work in Ohio. I was the extension director there for about 3 years. And in Ohio, we found out if you look at 64% of the people surveyed out of 61 people said that they suffer from the lack of farmland. 69% says they don't have any money to get started in farming, okay? 74% says the lack of knowledge in production, sales, and management of the farm, okay? When I talk about vegetable farming, yes, it is similar to vegetable gardening, but it is also significantly different. And I'm about to show that to you by just showing you 2 photos. 2 photos is all you need to see to understand the difference between vegetable farming and vegetable gardening. Okay, this is a survey with the help of our esteemed Mr. Chavis, and only got 7 farmers, but they said some of the same things. They don't have they don't have land, they don't have access to money to get started in farming. So how do we cope with this stuff? And I have some answers today. Okay? These are some of the things that novice farmers, particularly in vegetable growing, need to know. I highlighted them for a reason. It's easier to grow food than it is to sell food. Okay? That is always true. Okay? So before you jump into growing food, please be careful and knowledgeable about how you're going to sell it, how much money you're going to pay, you're going to get paid, and whether or not the people you're selling food to want to buy the food from you, okay? So be aware of that. Food quality and grading of vegetables are important, okay? Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, they have what they call USDA gradings. There is a number 1 tomato, then there is a number 2 tomato, and a number 3 tomato. Nobody is going to buy a number 3 tomato from you unless they are your family or friends, okay? Number 1 tomatoes fetch twice the price of number 2 tomatoes at produce auctions in wholesale markets, okay? You need to learn not only how to grade your product, but also how to take care of your plants in order to get the most number 1 product out of it, okay? I'll give you an example of tomatoes. If you grow tomatoes under the sky without any kind of protection, your percentage of number 1 tomatoes will reduce. You don't want rain to fall on your tomato plants. That will reduce the quality of your product. Okay? So good quality, so commercial tomato growers, they always prefer to grow it under some kind of a cover. It doesn't have to be a tunnel. It has to be a cover to keep the rain off the plants. Okay? You have to learn how to manipulate flower clusters in a tomato plant. Look at the flowers. You have to take a pair of sharp scissors to cut off smaller flowers. That would allow the remaining flowers to turn into fruit and get to, say, 0.8 to 1 pound tomatoes. Okay? Number 1s. You have to be very selective of what variety of tomatoes you're growing. One of the top varieties of number 1 producing tomatoes are called Red Deuce, BHN 589, and I forgot, Primo Red, okay? Those are commercial varieties that would give you the top number 1 tomatoes. So there is a certain amount of knowledge that goes into this thing. If you buy from Burpees seeds and you want to get Big Boy, Better Boy, Early Girl, those varieties that many of us are familiar with for home gardening, those are not commercial varieties. They are not going to take you to the promised land when it comes to farming and selling vegetables. Another thing, earning a six-figure income from a small piece of land is not the norm, okay? If you go on YouTube and watch a lot of YouTube videos about small-scale farming, there are videos saying, oh, I made $80,000 or $120,000 from half an acre. That's not what most farmers do in the real world, okay? So please don't be swayed by videos that are, maybe it's true for one or two people, okay? But it's not true for most people. And unfortunately, I'm the kind of guy, I never fall under the one or two people category. I'm always under the most people category. That's just my bad luck. Maybe you guys are special, but I'm not, okay? The data from Vegetable Farm shows average profit would be about 50 to 55 cents per square foot. We know an acre is 43,560 square feet. So you should expect, if you are a good manager, a good farmer, to be able to make about $21,000 to $22,000 a year profit out of 1 acre of land growing vegetables. All right. No, it's not just tomatoes. It's a mix. So you're going to grow stuff in the spring, grow stuff in the summer, grow stuff in the fall, and all the money you make, when you put that together, that should come out to be around $20,000 an acre. Okay? Bingo! Look at these two photos. The photo on the top left is vegetable gardening. The photo on the bottom right is vegetable farming. Do you see that there is a little difference? Okay? If what they're doing on the top left photo, if you do that to a whole acre, okay, you would be spending every waking hour trying to take care of those vegetables by hand, okay, just because of the way they have set it up. But if you look at the photo in the bottom right, you could run machines on it to take care of the vegetables. It makes it very easy to do that. And when I say machines, I don't always mean a tractor, okay? They have things. You can do it with a tiller. See, you can run a tiller there, or you can run a wheel hoe. There are machines called wheel hoes that have various attachments that would help you build up soil. It would help you side dress your vegetables, and it will also help you to cultivate your ground, okay, without using a hand tool. That's the thing you want to avoid. You don't want to ever bend down and work on the land, okay, because after a while your back's going to give out, all right? So we have to be smart in what we do. All right, let's talk about some production opportunities, okay, on small-scale vegetable growing. For sub-acre farming, one should focus on high-value crops. What are these high-value crops? These are crops that bring you some of the highest money on a per square foot basis, or on a, on my farm. I do have a farm in Ohio. I do 35-foot rows. Typically, people would do 50, 100, or 100-foot long rows. So on high-value vegetables are tomatoes, Greens. Now, greens is a general term for a variety of crops, okay, including lettuce and spinach and collards and mustards and turnips, all kinds of things in there. Arugula, that's a green. Kale, that's a green. Then you have carrots, okay? That's a high-value crop. Carrots can be hard to grow, not because they are difficult crop by itself. They do take a long time to germinate, but the weeding part can be a challenge, okay? Onions. Onions also are challenged by weeding, okay? However, they do take longer time than other crops to grow. Onions can take anything from 80 to 120 days for the bulb to mature, okay? And garlic takes 7 to 9 months to grow, okay? But they're a high-value crop, and various herbs. Herbs are relatively easy. What are low-value vegetables? Low-value vegetables include sweet corn, okay? Everybody loves sweet corn, right? Except for the farmer who doesn't make money growing sweet corn, okay? So it's a low-value vegetable. Squash is a low-value vegetable. Potatoes are a low-value vegetable. Now, can you make money doing all of those three crops? Yes, you can, but it would make more sense for you to grow those in larger tracts of land than smaller tracts of land, okay? You do not want to grow 1,000 square feet of potatoes. If you have a market for potatoes, you may want to grow 2-3 acres of potatoes, all right? Same deal with sweet corn. Product must be of high quality, top grade, and I spoke about that earlier. On the cucumber side, you may want to try a variety called Sweet Slice. On the cantaloupe side, you may want to try a variety called Athena, okay? But for new farmers, I always encourage them to focus on fast-growing varieties, things that can be put in and harvested quickly to make money, all right? 45 to 50-day cabbage. You know, if you grow cabbage, you're looking at some cabbages are 90 days before you can harvest. Now, they're monster heads, you know, basketball or bigger, all right? But you don't need those big cabbages to sell at a farmer's market. People are fine with smaller cabbages. I grow the Katarina variety. It's a 45-day sweet cabbage, okay? It's about that big, but when you chop it up and cook it, people are always surprised on how sweet it is, okay? Then there is a 50-day variety called Stonehead. Stonehead cabbage, you can also grow that. That's a quick cabbage, all right? Then there are tomatoes that can be harvested in 45 to 50 days. So you may want to grow that. You may want to start your tomatoes in February and then put them in the ground in a tunnel at the end of April and be ready for the market by June. All right, so that's a 50-day tomato. Then broccoli. There is a variety called Green Magic, 55-day broccoli. I grew it. I have a photo of it on my phone. Heads are about that big. Very beautiful, beautiful broccoli, okay? 45-day lettuce. What's 45-day lettuce? There is a variety called black-seeded Simpson. Okay, 40 to 45 days they will form a head. 60-day cantaloupe called Aspire. Okay, you can get those for sale. And one of the fastest intermediate onions that you can grow is called Candy. Okay, Candy can be prepared in 85 days. Now, here in Kentucky, you cannot grow short-day onions. You have to go South Tennessee for you to grow short-day onions. Kentucky to Southern Ohio, you grow intermediate-day onions where you have about 12 hours of daylight, okay? If you go to northern part of Ohio, then you're growing long day onions that require 14 hours. So if you try to grow short day onions here, your onions will not bulb. They will not become the big bulb that people want at a market, okay? They will become golf ball. Nobody wants a golf ball onion, okay? All right. Where am I? All right. Grocery store sales. Now, I think I passed something here. Yeah. So there are other opportunities. So farmers markets, well, farmers market is not always a good thing, all right? I'll tell you my personal example. I sell at a, you may call a rural/urban farmers market in Ohio, okay? It's a very nice city. There are people with money who live there. But after selling there, I did the math and I figured out, I would probably make only $2,000 a year selling at that market, okay? No matter what I sell, there's just not enough customers, all right? Now, so I have to have my son sell there, and I have to go to another farmer's market and sell at 2 farmers market if I want to make a $5,000 income a year, okay? So farmers markets are not always the answer, all right? But if you do want to sell at farmers markets, these are some of the top vegetables. Beefsteak tomatoes, they are not interested in Roma tomatoes, trust me. Beefsteak tomatoes, carrots, greens, onions, broccoli, and melons. Okay, those are some of the top items. Green beans also, some of the top items that sell in farmers market. So one of the things that I'm looking into as part of my research program here at Kentucky State University is selling more and more vegetables to ethnic grocery stores. So I had one of my graduate students, Ruby, go and collect data from various ethnic markets, grocery stores in Kentucky. And these are some of the things that we learned. African market is a general term because there are African market for people who are from the western part of Africa. There are African markets people from the central part of Africa. Yes, they do have differences, but they also have a lot of similarities, okay? And we found out that the small white eggplants, they do look like eggs, okay? Like a big chicken egg. That is something that is of high demand. There is something called an African gourd. They want that. And small sweet pumpkins. They sell well. The good thing is these markets also want fresh leaves as their greens. Cassava leaves, sweet potato leaves, and amaranth leaves are products they want. So they are actually buying from wholesalers out of Chicago, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and New York. And they do get some of these items supplied to them, but the quality is not there, particularly with leaves, okay? Leaves need to be fresh, right? If a leaf is on a truck for a week, all right, until it gets to your market, it looks like a dead fish that has been on a truck for a week, okay? It's just not pretty, all right? All right. Indian, South Asian, so this is Indian, Nepalese, Pakistani, maybe some Burmese stores. By the way, Dr. Dawson, there are several stores from Myanmar in Bowling Green. I found that interesting. What do they want? They want the large purple eggplants, okay? Some people call them the Chinese eggplants, all right? Green hot chili peppers, some people call them the Thai peppers. They're skinny. Okay, they're only about as long as a cigarette. They're green, sometimes they're red, and please don't bite into them. You will know that you're alive when you bite into them. Okay? Fresh turmeric, ridge gourd. What the heck is ridge gourd? Bingo! That's the ridge gourd. You see the picture up there? That's called a ridge gourd. That's something they like to get. Yard-long beans. When they say yard-long beans, it's really not yard-long. They're about that big, okay? Green beans that are that big. You can get them green or purple, all right? Okra, Fresh okra is something they want. Fairly easy to grow. I have grown it. Cabbage and cauliflower. All right? Moving on. So here are some data that we collected from a survey of grocery stores in Ohio. So we had some 16 stores in Dayton, 2 stores in Toledo, and 4 stores in Cleveland. And you know, if you look at it, what do they really want? Everybody wants tomatoes, all right? And some of these guys will buy your medium-sized Roma tomatoes and your 4 to 6 ounce beefsteak tomatoes, all right? White and black Americans, they prefer your 14, 16 ounce beefsteak tomatoes. They prefer the large ones. But in Asia, and I think maybe in Africa, I'm not sure, but I know for Asia that farmers typically don't grow those big tomatoes, all right? They have the medium-sized tomatoes. So these individuals who are buying from these ethnic grocery stores, they have grown used to eating the smaller tomatoes, so that's what they want. And so if you have smaller tomatoes, that's a good place to sell them. Pardon me. They are willing to buy it seasonally. They understand that local farmers in Ohio, in Kentucky, they cannot supply for a whole year, okay? So their sales is so large that they would buy several 25-pound boxes of tomatoes from you when you have them, okay? But they're not going to make you their exclusive supplier, all right? They do have a wholesale supplier that they will rely on, but if you provide them with good quality product and you're willing to accept wholesale prices, remember that's important, you're willing to accept wholesale prices, okay? Then, so what does that mean? You will get $18 to $20 for a 25-pound box of tomatoes, okay? If you're okay with that, I'm okay with that for my tomatoes, then you can sell it to them. All right. Next question. Can small-scale farmers sell collaboratively? Notice the Amish do that. The Amish and Mennonites, they're really good at that. They always work together, okay? Question is, can the rest of us follow that example? Working together brings special strengths. One way that we can work together is by doing what is called a marketing cooperative. What is a marketing cooperative? A marketing cooperative is an organization among a group of farmers who agree that they will plan their production and sales together, who agree, number one, we will trust our brothers and sisters in the church. That's what the Amish and Mennonites do. They trust each other. They don't lie to each other. They work together, okay? That's number one. That is the main glue that holds the cooperative together. The second thing is they will find one person among their group who is very good at making sales, okay? Or you guys can hire somebody from Kentucky State or from University of Kentucky. You can have a young person who is graduating with a degree in marketing. Hire that person. Oh, did I forget something? You don't have to pay them a salary. Isn't that great? If you can hire somebody and they will work for you without a salary, I think that sounds fantastic. But they would still get paid. How do they get paid? This is how. That person that you hire, they go and find markets for your products. They tell you, this is what you should be growing. You have to trust your manager and do what that person tells you. When they sell, they charge a commission on the sales they're making, okay? So they get paid from the sales. You do not have to cough up a salary for them, okay? So if they want to make a lot of money, they better go make a lot of sales, okay? And if they make a lot of sales for you, that is good news for you because you are selling more of your crop, okay? So it is a win-win situation, all right? So I really think that some of our students should be engaged in that, should come, you guys should hire them to help sell stuff at farmers markets, okay? They don't have to do it as part of the university, they can do it as a private person, okay? And then they get a commission, okay? They can get 50 cents a pound to them, all right? While the rest of the money goes to you. Something very simple, all right? Okay, what are we? Financing opportunities. Oh, brother, this is a tough one. Yes, you need money to get started with farming, okay? No, I do not recommend borrowing from the government. If you want to do that, that's fine. I farmed without borrowing a penny from the government, and I will not borrow money from the government if I can avoid it, because once you borrow money from them, and if you're not able to pay it back on time, guess what they will do? They will take your farm away from you, okay? They will take everything you possess, your tractor, your equipment, everything away from you. So, yes, they have opportunities, but be very careful in what you do. So, the Curtis Stone, do you know who Curtis Stone is? If you don't, look him up online. Okay, so Curtis Stone is a guy, he's a Canadian, and he has a successful farming model for small-scale vegetable growers. He says that you can obtain land by working with your neighbors and share your profits or share your crop with them, okay? So that is your immediate land access. And what does Sid Dasgupta say? Yes, you can start your first farm by getting land from various community gardens, okay? We have a whole list of community gardens all over Kentucky, and most of them will allow you to rent 1,000, 2,000, up to 4,000 square feet with water access, okay, at just very nominal prices. Trust me, you spend more money at McDonald's in a year than what these people want for use of their land, okay? It's nothing, all right? And some people will even give it to you for free, all right? That should be your first farm if you don't have access to land. Now, how much money do you need to get started farming, excluding the land? You need around $5,000, okay? Again, you don't have to borrow it from the government. You can work with your family and friends, and they may be able to help you. And then you, of course, do pay them back, okay? So you need a small tiller, $500. Am I lying? No, I'm not. Go to Lowe's. You can get a good quality 4-cycle engine Mantis tiller that can take care of a few thousand square feet for $300 to $400, okay? Now, hand tools, those are $200. An irrigation, so drip irrigation system, an entire box for your drip irrigation, about $250. Seed germination kit, that's $200. What is a seed germination kit? Those are seed trays, ProMix, and you need a lighted shelf that can go into your home where you can germinate up to 1,000 seedlings at a time, okay? So that's about $200, okay? Harvesting equipment, around $200. What is harvesting equipment? Knives, gloves, baskets, okay, boxes. Those are harvesting equipment. You need a wash pack station, okay? I'll show you later how to build one. A wash pack station is something that has basins, okay, that has a freshwater line coming in that has a place where that has a bubbler. You can build a bubbler using a brand new, don't go used on this, a brand new wet dry vacuum cleaner. Okay, you can build a bubbler that would bubble water and air together to wash your vegetables, and then you have a drying station where you have some box fans, cheap Walmart box fans, might I add, that would dry your vegetables, and they would go into boxes or bags. And then you need a small produce cooler that's about $1,700. You can buy that used produce cooler, or you can build a wooden shed and you put in insulation in there, and you put in a $90 air conditioner out of Walmart and a CoolBot system. If you want to learn how to do all of that, please join Farming for Cash, because we're going to show you how to do all those things, okay? So it all adds up to about $5,000. That's the investment you need to get started, okay? All right, then once you have a 3-year farming record, then you can, once you're ready, once you know that you can do this, you may end up hating to farm, okay? Then the most you're going to waste is $5,000, all right? You know, that's an acceptable loss. But don't buy land without knowing if you like to farm or not. But once you have 3 years of profit you're making, and you have farm income tax for 3 years, then you can approach the government for a low interest loan to buy a farmland, to buy a home for you to live on, all of that. You know, that'd be good, because at that time you know that, yes, you can do this. You understand what I'm saying? Don't buy all that stuff and then find out that you're a flop as a farmer. Yeah, please don't do that, okay? All right, so here are some income possibilities, some real numbers here, yeah. So on lettuce heads, on the 50-foot row, you should expect 100 heads. Now this includes loss, okay? You're looking at 80% of your product can be sold, all right? On tomatoes, you should expect 250 pounds of tomatoes, about 5 dozen sweet corn, 300 bulbs of onions, and 100 pounds of green beans. That's on a 50-foot row of tomatoes, on the 50-foot row of sweet corn, but you don't grow sweet corn in a row, obviously. Okay, you have to have several rows of sweet corn for pollination, okay, but onions and things like that. And really, this is what the revenues you're going to take, and this is the time it takes in months to grow it, okay? So the time is an important factor. If you start growing varieties that would take 6-8 months, you're not going to see any money from that piece of ground for 6 to 8 months. That's probably not the smartest thing to do. So it's very important to choose varieties that are appropriate. All right, income from a farmer's market sale. So this is a small, only 5,000 square foot vegetable farm. Now this is something you can do from borrowing land at one or more community gardens, okay? So what are we growing? We're getting 1,200 pounds of tomatoes. We're getting 30 dozen ears of sweet corn. We're getting 720 pounds of green beans, 480 heads of lettuce, and 90 watermelons. Those are averages. And they take losses into account. Just because you're growing tomatoes doesn't mean all the tomatoes that you grow, you can't sell them all, okay? Some of them are going to crack. Some of them are going to have holes in it. Nobody's going to buy stuff like that. So we take into account of product that cannot be sold to be able to get those numbers, okay? So you're ending an annual total revenue of $10,680. 60 to 70% of that is your income, okay? So your income will be between $6,000 to $7,000 a year from that 5,000 square feet of land. The rest of that is your operating and fixed costs. But what about if you scale up to an acre? The problem with scaling up to an acre is that you would not be able to sell everything that you grow to farmers markets, roadside stands. That's a challenge. You may be able to, but like I said, you have to be a special person to do that. Not everybody would be able to do that. So you're going to have to look for wholesale markets. So the grocery stores, maybe some restaurants, or maybe produce auctions, okay? So here you're looking at, out of a quarter acre, that's only 10,000 square feet, you have 13,000 pounds of tomatoes, okay? I'm assuming all of them are number 2 with a wholesale value of $11,908. That wholesale number, that is gotten from our average produce auction prices that University of Kentucky reports, okay? 3,900 pounds of onion bulbs, 5,000 heads of lettuce, and 980 watermelon. Your expected total revenue is $21,000. Again, 50, 60, 70% of that, depends on how good of a farmer you are, 50, 60, 70% of that will be your profit. That is the total revenue. Okie dokie. Conclusions, yay! Sub-acre farming can make money, okay? Yeah, you can make some money. You can get yourself started with some borrowed land and $5,000 worth of equipment. Large farms, 1+ acres, you have to sell wholesale, okay? There is no real option over there, okay? Here, sales are less of a problem, but your prices can be unpredictable too, because if you go to produce auctions, prices would vary. So if you have a large farm, say you're doing 3 acres of vegetables, the number one thing you have to focus is the quality of the product, because if you go to an auction market, if you go to a restaurant market, if you go to a grocery market, they will not buy crappy vegetables, okay? So it is a challenge to be a large organic farm, because with organic production you have lesser ability to fight diseases and fight insect pressure, okay? And so if you have bugs chewing on your tomatoes, guess what? You may have a few holes in your tomatoes. That is not a number 1 tomato, and that will be rejected, okay? So please be knowledgeable and thoughtful about these things, okay? The real struggle is the cost of equipment. That lady said, you cannot buy a tractor. She said that, okay? Maybe she is right, all right? When we got this started, my wife said, and my wife does not have a farm background, she said, Sid, we have to buy a tractor. And I said, no, we don't. We have to buy a tractor. I said, no, we don't. So we go to a Rural King in Ohio that sells Chinese tractors, and we got a Chinese diesel tractor for $22,000. And I told her, no, we are not buying this. So thankfully I prevailed, and what we did instead is we came to Earth Tools and we got 2 used but in good shape walk behind. I have a BCS 948, that's a big BCS, that's a monster BCS. And then for my sons, I got them a BCS 710 that they can handle. The 948 is too powerful, it's hard to turn around with that thing. That one I use, my sons use the BCS 710. And with the 2 BCS, we are able to handle up to 2 acres. And to be honest with you, I have 7 acres available to me to farm, but we lease our land to a corn and soybean farmer, and I will never use the whole 7 acres because I just won't do that. I only vision myself farming up to 2 acres, okay? All right. Hey, guys, that's all I got. Hope you had a good time. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. No, you have to send me a text message. That's all you have to do. I make things very easy. I make things very easy. Can you make that number? 502-209-0838. And no matter how many texts you send me saying that I owe you money, I will not pay you money. Okay? Feel free to send me those texts. How long is the training? Huh? How long? Yeah, our plan is to train over a whole year. Okay, but we only train people at certain parts of the country, so we may have to do some travel. What's that? Is there a cost for it? No, we don't charge people any money. We don't give any money. Okay? Like I said, oh, we're probably going to do 2 or 3 workshops.
We're going to go ahead and go on with our next speaker, and then we will have lunch right after this. So Dr. G is going to be up speaking with us as soon as Elias pulls up his PowerPoint.
All right.
All right, there we go. Do you want a handheld or are you good?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Oh. I guess I have 15 minutes and I'll try to be as concise as possible. All I'm trying to do today is to tell you our relationship, Kentucky State University, with farmers partners in terms of the project that was funded with NRCS. So I'm not going into the details of what we're doing, but at least the importance of working with farmers, as important as it is, I want to encourage. How about now? I'm good? Okay. Yeah, so I titled it this way because I'm a teacher, so I have the tendency to move from place to place. So I'm a soil scientist. I teach soil science at Kentucky State University. I joined the university back in 2014. Since then, I have been involved in various aspects of soil health. But today, what I would like to do is to put emphasis on the importance of collaboration between universities and farmers, the stakeholders in this case. This is a project that was funded back in 2024 with NRCS for about $600,000. I started out by putting together a proposal. The proposal being that instead of doing the work, the research at the university setting, what if we partner with farmers and do the actual work? That is to say that the farmers are the scientists on their own right. I don't have to tell you what to do. I'm not a farmer. I don't know, all the tractor names and all that. But what if we work together? And then NRCS liked the idea, and they gave us the funding. And this project was funded. So the whole idea was trying to introduce the concept of regenerative farming. We'll give you a very brief definition of what it is, but it is nothing more than how do you work with nature in order to regenerate itself, right? The focus of this funded project was to introduce, I'm sure most of you know, what is the importance of cover cropping, minimum tillage, crop rotation, organic manure, and so on. And then we added one input in here, the use of biochar. Biochar, I'm quite sure most of you have heard about it. There is so much talk about biochar, and we're actively working on biochar. Having said that, I would like to thank NRCS for funding this project. I know you are the scientists. This idea, I'm a believer that the idea that farmers, their job is only to till soil, I don't like it. I think farmers are scientists. It's on their role, right? They understand nature better than anyone else. What do you think the climate scientist would tell you better than the person who is directly working with nature itself? They talk about atmospheric warming and all that stuff, but in the end, there is no person on this planet that knows the planet than the farmers. I'm one of those believers, and I truly mean it, right? Because you experience the change in soil quality, the change in atmospheric warming, and all that stuff, right? I mean, if you talk about climate change to other people, they may not understand it, but you are at the center of it. So a little bit of perspective on the right-hand side. You can take a look at it on your own. By year 2100, we will basically lose our soils, believe it or not. That is, if we continue the way we treat soil, ultimately, I'm from Africa, northern part of Africa. What used to be a very fertile, productive land of much of the northern Africa is now gone. That the Sahara Desert is accelerating at a rate we've never seen before. Why? Because these soils that you work with every day is a precious natural resource that you cannot recover it in your lifetime. Maybe in generations and generations you can. Once you lose it, you lose it. So we better take care of our soil. I'm sure I don't have to preach to you, but it is important natural resource. Have we caused damage to our soils? I think most of you agree with me. Yes, we did to a degree, right? In order to increase production, we had to add, chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, you name it. So without us fully knowing what we were doing over the course of 250 years, the soil quality is degrading. I don't have to tell you that because you are the witness. Erosion, declining productivity, all those stuffs are your day-to-day experience. So, for perspective, 1 inch topsoil takes 1,000 years. What does that mean? Right? So, totally you cannot recover soil. You just can't. You lose it, you lose it. That is the message. So, can we somehow do something to maintain its current status? I think we can. And this project is about some of the soil conservation practices that NRCS is advocating, the minimum tillage, the cover cropping, all that stuff. Yeah, so most of you practice reduced tillage. If I were to ask you, have you practiced reduced tillage? Just yes, no, yes? Is it good? Is it bad? Yeah. Okay. What is the consensus? Is this a good practice to adopt and practice? Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, we have a few farmers here that are working with us today. Maybe if they give their testimonial, I would appreciate. Mike Andrew is here, I think, and then some of you. But the whole idea of this project was, again, it was NRCS support. How do you promote the importance of minimum tillage, cover cropping, crop rotation, and without really relying heavily on chemicals, inputs onto your soil? And then what does it do to recover, regenerate, recuperate the soil health? How do you do it? I think we have this project. that has been going on. A little bit about biochar. How many of you are using biochar right now? None? You use it? How is it? Is it good? Okay, yeah. We at Kentucky State University, we are actively working on biochar from its production phase to its application rate to what it does to your soil. So if you are interested, I think we'll have a field day at one of those counties. I'll tell you the details of the project to show you the importance of biochar and how biochar improves soil properties from its water holding capacity to some of the processes undergoing within the soil system. So back to the project, we got funded in 2023, and we started working with 5 landowners. Happens to be they're fairly distributed from south to north. We started talking to them. They were very willing to work with us, and we started visiting their farm. I have a graduate student, 2 of my graduate students actually working directly with farmers. And I truly would like to acknowledge this partnership, because without them, nothing could have been done. That they set aside about 4 acres of land for this purpose, and we are actually working together with farmers, them being the drivers. We're not. We're just simply guiding them, okay, this is what our proposal says, would you help us? And they say yes. So in a way, this is how technology gets easily infused into the community without simply as, here is a fact sheet, here is this, here is a video. What if you work together? I think it is a very I like the working model. This is a model that everyone should practice if you want to introduce new concept. The details of it that, and here are the counties. Basically, it's a very fairly easy experimental setup. We went ahead, they gave us 4 acres of land, we divided it into 2. The farmers would prepare the land for us. We'll ask them, okay, till this part, do not till this part, and then we'll go ahead and then apply different treatments. That's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. We have 1 more year to go, and then we'll share the findings of this project. I don't need to go this, but this is exactly what happens at the farmer's place. Much like what it could have been done here, we just took it out, right? And the farmers actually are the principal researchers in this case. They see it. If they want to believe, they believe it, and then they take it. If they don't like it, they will tell us, go home. I don't like this, right? So we're still doing that. A little bit, yeah. Because I don't want to waste too much of your time. But again, not the word educate is a bad word, because you know it. It's just that once you understand the importance of it, then comes how do you promote that technology to the rest of the community. I think we have model farmers to speak of these practices, and I don't have to talk about it because I don't know much about it. How about the person who is practicing it, right? Maybe Michael, you can say a little bit, you don't like it? You like it? I hope you like it. Okay. Maybe I will invite you and then to say a few words. So, very, very simple, not costly operations, reduced tillage, minimum tillage. Dr. Dasgupta talked about the operational cost of small-scale farming. Basically, it is what it is, but it can be also very costly. I don't go into that. I don't have the knowledge to talk about it. But again, at the heart of this project is how do you keep your soil healthy? And NRCS has been pushing this whole concept of regenerative farming, soil conservation practices. But how many farmers are practicing it is still out there. But the trend is upwardly. Many farmers are adopting it. But there is a lot of work to be done in terms of machineries, For example, one of the questions we're asking biochar, as good as it is, nobody knows how much you have to add. Some in Michigan, they put 20 tons per hectare, 40 tons per hectare, 30 tons per hectare. So what we are doing currently is actually trying to find that optimum application rate. Happens to be for the soil type around Kentucky, around those 5 counties, about 20 tons per hectare seems to be working. Anywhere from 10 to 20 tons per hectare of biochar appears to improve soil quality. When we say, go ahead, ma'am.
I was going to ask you, did I understand correct that Kentucky State has a biochar facility?
We do not have, yeah, that's a very good point. That is our second phase of the project. We do not produce biochar on our own. We purchase this biochar from a company in Michigan. But here is the deal. I think, as some of our farmers can testify, you can produce your own. It's not costly to produce. It's a charcoal, basically it's a charcoal, right? The only difference is you don't want to, when you burn charcoal for barbecue, you completely oxidize it, and then you say carbon dioxide as a final product. In a biochar, what all you are trying to do is you try to concentrate the carbon in that charcoal. How do you do it? You compost it at a very low oxygen. When you add oxygen, you are burning it, right? What if you limit the amount of oxygen and put it in a container and warm it at a very high temperature? That could be a challenge at 700, 800 degrees, and then there you have a charcoal. So what are the feedstock? The feedstock that is the crop residue, the animal manure. You can make biochar out of almost everything and anything that you have at your farm, right? So our second phase is to produce our own biochar, and then we'll try to optimize what percentage of oxygen and what temperature should be the right combination so that you can have the highest quality of biochar. So what is biochar? Basically, it is carbon. You are simply putting the carbon in a charcoal, you apply it, and this charcoal, believe it or not, will release its carbon over a period of hundreds of years because the microbes will find it very hard to chew it, to decompose it, and then make it part of the soil matrix. So it takes time. So you can say, oh, what if I leave my residue? True, but microbes can decompose plant residue in matters of 4 or 5 years. But if you put this charcoal, it's going to remain there for many, many years. And NRCS is pushing it. A lot of big farmers are using it right now. I don't know the extent to which farmers in Kentucky are using it. But give it a try, and then talk to those 5 partners, and they'll tell you whether it is, well, I don't need. No, this is what we did. We divided it, till, no till, different cover crops, and then graduate students would go there and take soil samples, of course. What are we looking for? Is the soil recovering from what used to be? The data is in. It looks like there are some signs that the health is being recovered. How do you measure that the soil health is recovering? Okay, tell me some of the signs. When you say my soil is doing okay, you're a farmer? No, you're not? You are. Okay, what is a healthy soil? Healthy soil that does what? Hold water first, right? Right? And then at the same time, you want the soil to allow water to pass through. How about in terms of nutrients? You want the soil to hold all the nitrogen, the potassium, and then the phosphorus and all that stuff. So the definition of soil health is much like a human health. You cannot, keep your heart healthy, but not your lung. It just doesn't work, right? You want to treat soil as a system, from its ability to allow water to pass through, to hold water, to keep nutrients, to make nutrients available for the plants. Biochar, as good as it is, it doesn't allow the plant roots to take it. Think about it. You add this carbon, and then it holds It just, the nutrients are fixated, they're being fixed to the biochar, and plants would have tough time to take it away from the charcoal. So there's a lot of science that needs to be done, but from our findings, there are good signs. So this is what we did. Guess who did this? The farmers, not us. So the model of partnership is by directly working with farmers. Imagine all of us are doing this in partnership, right? It's a very important model, don't you think? It is. Is it practical? That I'll leave it up to you. But I think for the 5 counties that we're working with, it looks like it is working. I mean, just to give you some perspective, we had these treatments, we had fertilizers, cover crop. You don't want to miss. And like I said, I'm not here to talk about the science, but I think I'm a strong believer that working with farmers is the only way to go at this point. You don't want universities to do their research. They can do their own basic research. But in the end, the transition from knowledge to practicality is the shortest path is by working directly with the stakeholders. Think of how many years do you have to wait for me to say, oh, biochar is good? The next 20 years? You don't want that, right? So why don't you co-learn with the people who are practicing it? That's all I have. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. All righty. Well, we're getting close to lunch, and I'm standing in between you. I'm going to go ahead and employ you again. I think I'm loud enough. I don't think I need to use that. To use those QR codes on your table. There are 68 people in this room, and only 22 of y'all have signed up for today and signed in for today. So I will say again, sign in and you may get a hat. So if you haven't signed in yet, we're going to pull one more time after lunch. So with that being said, I'm dropping everything. Actually, somebody left their glasses up here. We'll just leave them right here. Everett Walker. Okay. Chris Rapti. All right. There you go. Anthony Brooks. Ian, are you still here? Oh, yep, there you are. Ian. I did. You're welcome. Here we go. Jennifer. There you go. Diane Flagstaff. Yes. I can't read her handwriting. Shiana Grace. Is it Shayna?
Thank you.
Okay, Shayna. All right. Thank you, ma'am. And then Miss Brandy Button Johnson. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to quit standing between y'all and lunch. What we're going to do, we have a wonderful lunch prepared for y'all by Alfalfa's Catering. So we're going to go out this door to the left, and you will line up, and then you'll just come back in this door over here. That way we have a nice little flow. Thank you all very much, and we're gonna have about 30 to 40 minutes for lunch, and then we're gonna continue the program this afternoon. So sign in, do your surveys. You can still do surveys from Tuesday and Wednesday. They're in the back of your program. If you don't have a program, they're out front. Do your surveys, let us know what we did right, what we did wrong, so we can change for next year, and what you want to see next year, what programs you want to see. That helps us build this program for next year. Thank y'all. And at the end of the day, y'all take these pumpkins off these tables.
Okay, we're going to continue with the program. We have our next topic, as property. Mr. Casey Townsend, State Specialist, Land Retention and Wealth Building here at Kentucky State University.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good, good. I hope y'all can hear me okay. So we're going to do a quick icebreaker. Before we dive into the presentation, we're going to do a icebreaker. But before we do that, I want to introduce myself again. My name is Casey Townsend. I am the Land Retention and Wealth Development Specialist with Kentucky State University. I am also a realtor by trade. Before we dive too deep into the presentation as well, I do want to give you all a disclaimer that I am not a licensed attorney, but I can give you all an overview about how heirs properties impacts you, as well as give you some sound advice for estate, as well as succession planning for those of you who are or are impacted by heirs property. And another thing I will say, because this is going to be more of a discussion today, I will say that as we have a discussion amongst the group, please, if you use any examples, don't use personal examples, right? Because sometimes when we have different workshops out in the public and things of that nature, there are people who are predatory, who may be trying to take your information or figure out a way to take your land. So can we all do a thumbs up if you all agree with those things? Cool. So we're gonna do a quick icebreaker. Do I have sound on this, Elias? On this one? Cool. Oops. Okay. So we're gonna do an icebreaker called That's Me. So when I make a statement, I'm gonna give you a statement, and if you think it applies to you, you're gonna say, that's me. Y'all ready? All right. So the first thing is, I am in Kentucky. Okay. The second statement is, I am at the Small Farms Conference. Okay. My next thing is, I have lived in only one state my whole life. Okay. So I hear a smaller amount of people. The next statement is, I have lived in another country. That's me, okay. I have driven a tractor. Ooh, almost the whole room spoke up. The farmers in the building. I have cooked for more than 20 people. I am the baby of the family. I am the oldest child in the family. I am a middle child. It seems like it was a smaller group of people. Okay, no problem. That's family dynamics, right? You hear the family dynamics kind of circulating in the room right now. I am a farmer. Okay. I am at least a third-generation landowner in some shape or form. Ooh, okay. I am connected to my family. I have ridden in a hot air balloon. Okay. I like roller coasters. Okay. I like a good watermelon. Oh, the whole room lit up. All right, so here are some more serious questions, and I really want to hear it. I am deeply concerned about heirs properties. I know someone who has lost heirs property land. My family has lost heirs property land. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Give yourselves a round. Okay. So, I'm going to dive into the presentation here. Can I click forward? Let's see. Okay. So this is a question. I want to hear those numbers and figures out and see what you all think. What percentage of people do you think died without a will? Can I hear it? I heard 35, 60, 75, 95, 90. Okay. So, and I looked at two different sources for this. One source that I looked at was, and the font is kind of small. Excuse me if you all can't see it. But according to AARP, 51% of people over the age of 50 died without a will, which is intestate. By the show of hands, how many of y'all are familiar with intestate, with the meaning of that? So we'll dive deep into that here in a second. The second source that I looked at was the Pew Research Center. And according to their data, that's about every 3 in 10 U.S. adults that at least have a will. So that means only 32% of folks even have a will. Says that they have a will according to the survey and research that they did. So with that being said, after knowing this fact and data that you see, how many people would you say now died without a will? Yep, so about 68%, right? So 32% said that they have created a will. About 31% say that they have a living will, or just instructions for advanced health care directives. So like the power of attorney. But well, you don't have to raise your hand, but I will. How many of you, by the show of hands, have a power of attorney? Right? That's me. So you definitely want to make sure you have those directives in place. I've even been having some discussions with some family members of mine, I won't say who, but just to ensure now that they're approaching that retirement age and they've been working their whole lives, that they have some power of attorney directives in place. And like I said before, roughly 68% do not have a will, including myself. So I need to prepare for that, especially with my young people and children. I know, right? So, what's that? Oh, that's a great question. Can you tell me what you know commonly about a trust? Let's open it up.
Okay, what I know about a trust is they cannot sue you as a person, and they cannot search you and see what assets you have, because it's all in a trust. And you can pick who that trust goes to, and that person owns the trust. I'm a believer in trusts. Because, okay, I will also tell you, on wills, they can probate. So who wins in probate?
Can I ask the question again?
Who wins in a probates? The attorneys. And you hear of farms where family that have had major assets, and the attorney, and it's in the court and probate, and the children, the heirs, don't get anything because they weren't educated in that area. And the attorneys are the ones that pocket the money, and the heirs don't get anything. So I'm a believer in trusts.
And thank you for mentioning that. So I will say from experience, because I've helped my family members navigate a lot with heirs properties for the past 10 years, actually. And so for one thing, as you mentioned earlier about the attorneys pocketing money in the probate process, when you think about a lot of your rural counties, right, how many practitioners of heirs property or estate planners are there really in a rural town most of the time, right? So it's kind of like when you go to the doctor. The same thing that applies to law. You may have a general attorney, attorney practicing law, but they may not be well versed when it comes to estate planning. So after this presentation, I would like to send you all different questions that you can ask attorneys to kind of vet them through that process. If you decide to consult with an attorney or hire one as it relates to estate planning or to developing a simple will. And also sometimes when grandparents or our ancestors or whoever else writes a will, sometimes they create heirs property and how they write it. So for example, I've been having a lot of discussions with folks about wills. So let's say, for example, if I were to write one and I put in that will that I would like to divide all of my assets evenly amongst my 3 children, what do you think that creates? Heirs property. Now, why do you say that? Can we open the floor? Why do you think it creates heirs property? And there's no right or wrong.
Yeah,
Huh?
I think one of the things that a lot of people, especially parents, who believe they love their children all equally, and tell the truth, parents, you don't. You got a favorite. We all got one. But we try to be fair by our children, and we put all of their names on the property. They all get a little piece of land. They all get a little piece of the house and whatnot, but that's probably the worst thing you can do.
So a little bit earlier, I think we went around, and I only had a few copies, maybe about 50 copies, but I put a copy of an estate planning worksheet on everybody's table, and I can send this out digitally as well after this particular workshop. But this kind of just asks you different questions, right? And it has like a Likert scale, like where it basically asks you, taking pressure off family members about your life decisions, having a plan for your children's care, and so on. And I think on the backside, it talks about, working with attorney, how much resources you may have, if you plan on doing a handwriting will, if you plan on using an online template. And then you can even kind of brainstorm. I think there's a question on there. Well, I don't really see it. But you could even indicate who you would plan to be like an executor or executress of your estate, right? Because a lot of times if you decide to write a will, it's a good idea to indicate who would be able to sell your assets rather than creating that heirs property that we were talking about earlier with just saying that you want your assets divided evenly amongst your kids, right? So, and also with your will, you have to be very specific because you can't really divide a property in three, right? Like one single house, you can't divide that in three, but you could divide it within a trust and make sure that everybody gets their fractional interest and they have an operational agreement along within that trust, right? But like we were talking about earlier, heirs property is real estate or real property that's passed along to family members, especially by someone who has died intestate or without a will. And I know specifically with Kentucky, their intestate laws follow the dower and courtesy laws. So in other words, if a mother or a father passes away, the spouse gets 50% interest within that estate, but also the children get the other 50%, right? How many of y'all are familiar with that by the show of hands? So a few people, okay. Now every state is different, and I'm talking about specifically Kentucky in this point in time. But some states, I know for example, Kentucky also does not recognize the Uniform Partition Heir Properties Act. How many of you all have heard of that by the show of hands? The Uniform Partition Heir Properties Act. So that's like a federal law that kind of prevents different corporations and other people from forcing a sale, like a judicial or auction sale, without giving the original heirs the first right of refusal. So Kentucky, for example, doesn't utilize the Uniform Partition Heir Properties Act. But there are around 21 states. Do I have a diagram? Which I'll get to later, but I'll come back to that thought. But my next question for you all is, how many acres of land do you think African Americans have lost? Throw them out there, numbers. Millions? Okay. She said 90%. What did you say? Okay. Yep, so since 1910, rural African American farm families, and this is from the 2022 agriculture census data, because they release it every 5 years. But according to the data that they released, since 1910, rural African American farms have lost between 16 to 19 million acres. That's a lot of acreage gone, isn't it? But wanted to share that with you all. So I guess my question for the crowd is, how can we prevent that? We talked about trust. I guess I didn't even talk about what types of trust, which I didn't put in here, but there are different types of trust, right? You have an irrevocable trust, where it's kind of hard to make those changes once you make that decision. But you also have what you call a revocable trust. Let's say if I wanted to disinherit someone who I thought would steal the wealth from the family, right? I may have to revoke those rights from that particular individual. Let's say if, especially for some of my aged or elders in the room, let's say if you plan on going into a retirement facility, sometimes they have what you call the look back period. So you may want to utilize your option of what type of trust and when you establish that as well before you go into the retirement facility. So there's a lot of implications also when it comes to trust that you have to think about. Question, yes, sir. And please feel free to ask them.
A trust is extremely important as you are discussing, but wouldn't you also say that a survey is also equally important? Because that's how a lot of people lose land. If they don't have a survey and they don't know what they own, somebody could encroach upon their land and make their own survey and make part of your land their land.
Let's ask it. Let the crowd hear it too. I think this is all learning for all of us.
At the courthouse, when you, your deed, doesn't it say or have some type of outline of your property lines?
Well, are you asking him the question or are you asking me the question? Because he prefaced anything he had to say by letting you know that he's not an attorney and I'd have to stand by that same rule of engagement.
What's your answer?
So for my, because I'm also a realtor by trade, so I've closed different deals. But what I've seen from my practice as a realtor is when you look at the deeds that are recorded in the courthouse. Let's say if somebody files a new deed in the courthouse, what happens then? I don't really think at the land records office they're really verifying a lot of things. So it's important to pay attention as well. There is a lot of fraud, right? So when I look at data from, the National Association of Realtors, they said that it's a 61% increase in title fraud. That's title fraud that it happens, trust me. So my point is, just because it's recorded at the courthouse doesn't mean somebody isn't encroaching.
On the TV, you see this commercial now. They had that pretty young lady, and they're talking about fraud and how easy it is to do a quick deed claim, that type of thing. My question is, the law says we do the deeds, we take them to the courthouse. Aren't they liable when other people take stuff from us like that?
Can you ask that one more time?
Who's liable legally when you get robbed like that?
So most of the time when people acquire property, that's why it's important to purchase title insurance, right? So a lot of people don't pay for it. For example, when I work with a lot of clients, I always advise them to pay or to purchase title insurance because it's a one-time fee. Like you're saving yourself millions of dollars by purchasing title insurance, right? Like if that fraudulent activity happens, that's when you come after a company like Chicago Title Insurance but I guess that's also why it is important to clear up title to a property anyways, so you're able to borrow from the property and carry title insurance on it. Okay. Say that again.
When you buy or sell a place, don't you go through a title company to begin with? No, you got to pay for that. Well, okay. You got to pay for that. Even when if you're selling a house. You got to pay for that. They ain't gonna give it to you just automatically. Okay.
So to answer your question about the title company, typically, when deals are closed, the buyer chooses the title company to run it through, if that makes sense. And a title, for one, depending on what type of lender that they're using, would require them to carry title insurance. But let's say if you're a cash buyer, right, and you put your money where your mouth is, you may not necessarily carry title insurance. Let's let my lady here come, and I'll come over there.
Just real quick, I have a client through our transition program that has just that case. She paid cash for her farm from out of state, didn't do title insurance, and she's dealing with an heirs property neighbor, 8 kids, fighting over granddaddy's land, and now encroaching on their land. When they went to put the fence up for her cattle, 3 of the kids are saying, no, that's granddaddy's side right there. So they've got a big strip of grass there with stakes from the neighbor, stakes from her, where she knows her land is by acreage. They've been to court. It's a disaster. She's paying so much money, court, and still now they both have to get their own surveys. The surveyors in Kentucky are allowed to, they will put the line where you say, because you are their client, where you say that line is. So it's really still in the same situation. And the surveyor that they spoke to that came for the neighbor, he called and spoke to her for some reason, and she said, so what did you see? And he said, well, I agree with where you say your line is, but I'm surveying for them, so I'm putting the line where they want it because I work for them. And I asked her, did you have that conversation recorded? Which, by the way, in the state of Kentucky is not illegal to record a phone call. So anytime you're talking to someone, get a little recorder on your phone, which you can get an app to do that. But she said, I had no idea I could even record phone calls. I said, you're in Kentucky. You can record any conversations. And if she had had that, she could have took that to the court with her, and it would have been a good piece of evidence as well. But instead now, they've got to go further into court and have, I guess maybe the courts are going to issue a surveyor out, but it's just back and forth, back and forth. So get the insurance every time. And yeah, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely, because you want to protect your investment. Mr. Coleman, did you have your hand up? Yes, sir.
Mr. Shavis is going to like what I've got to share. I'm Jim Coleman. I'm in Lexington, and I purchased my family farm in 2001, and my parents owned it. They were third-generation owners, and I'm the black sheep in the family. When you buy land and you're the one that buys it, you're considering stealing it from everybody else because they can't afford to buy it. So I came back home. I assumed the mortgage that my mother had on it. She made that available to everybody. I'm the only one that took her up on it. And my goal was to fly into town from New York and get back to New York in the same day. So I was ready to sign whatever papers, get this thing, and to duck and get out of town. So I signed the papers. Fast forward 2020, I moved back home, and I'm ready to build a house on the farm that I've owned since 2001. The builder said, Mr. Coleman, we're going to start next week. I just need to go down to the courthouse to get a survey and a plat. I said, okay, go on and get it. He called me that evening after he went down to the courthouse. He said, we got a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, you don't have a survey on your farm. Y'all, that was scary. That was scary. I didn't know, it was after 5. I couldn't catch up with my lawyer to find out what does the deed say. Is that ignorant? I felt ignorant, stupid for not knowing that. But I found out that I had purchased a farm my family had owned, but it was in 4 different parcels with a lot of different names on it. Now, fortunately, my parents had that all transferred and combined, but I didn't have a survey or a plat, and that cost about $3,000 to get that done. But I do recommend, just for your own protection, is to get a survey for your land, that if you own it straight out, check to make sure it's not, because my farm was a quilt, and I basically turned it into one blanket by having that official survey and plat. So I encourage you all to do that.
Thank you for that. So a little bit earlier, are there any other questions before I go forward or comments? Okay.
I just wanted to rewind back to trust. Everybody's talking about generational wealth and transferring this and that down generations. People don't even know how much trust costs, right? It's conversation. I mean, some are even more, 10,000, Nobody's talking about that. So.
Yeah, so there is a cost to establishing a trust. From what I hear is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am, but there are, a person can be a trustee of their own trust. Have you all heard of that? Yeah. So, I mean, you can establish those rules, but also it's a good idea to go through a licensed attorney to make a trustworthy licensed attorney, not just any attorney, right? I think it is important to vet attorneys, which I'll share a little bit later as well.
When you pick your trust, like I've got a trust and I've got 2 trustees, and just please make sure that those trustees are competent. That, you know, it could be your cousin, it could be your brother, but get out of the personal side and can they count? Can they do things on time? Will they get you, when they hear that you died, we are all going to die. Nobody likes to hear that, but I've gotten used to it. Can they handle it? Or are they going to flip out? Are they going to get intimidated? Because a lot of my family members are going to try to intimidate the trustees that I've selected. And do they have the spine and backbone to be able to do what I have in my will and my trust? So it's the 2 that I've got, I love them. But just since in the last 4 years, I've watched their behavior. I love them to death. But I just had this meeting with my attorney last week. I'm going to make changes because I love them, but they're just not able. They don't have the strength to take on the battle that they're going to have to deal with when somebody calls them and say he's dead. Okay, so make sure whoever you pick, even if it's your lawyer, it does not have to be a family member. Preferably, if it's your accountant or your lawyer, and you can trust them and they're competent, that's what you want.
See, that's that revocable trust that we were talking about a little bit earlier too. Like sometimes it could change. Okay? And I'll come over here too as well, okay? Oh, okay. No problem.
This is for Jim Coleman. What's the advantage of having 2 trustees?
Is set up to where when my estate, I'm going to have it dissolved so that I can leave a trust to be able to provide money to 2 institutions, 2 colleges that I've put in my will that my wife and I want to support in perpetuity. So you just want to make sure that the court sale on any of your assets, including your land, that it's done properly. Even again, if you trust your trustees, you want to have it to where it has to be approved by the court, the judge, on the price that it was. So as an example, if your farm today is worth $500,000, you do not want a trustee selling it for $100,000 to their nephew and they take it.
Right.
So you want that sale to be approved by the court based on a fair appraisal, appraised value, so that that nets into the estate fund that you have dedicated to whatever cause you have. I mean, it's a lot of things.
Wait a
it's
minute
a lot
now.
of worries.
As property, the value increase, do you have to go back?
No, it's all handled at your death. And that's why you want to have a good trustee and a good lawyer that at that time, I want it to be where we get 3 appraisals, take an average of the 3, and that's where the market starts. Because I've got some plans that I've set up to be able to fund certain organizations that I have in my will from the proceeds of that sale. So if it's worth, hopefully I'll live another 20 years. In Fayette County, let's say it's $2.5 or $3 million. I do not want my trustee to sell it for $200,000 to a family member and pocket. You just get to, when you get down to the facts, anybody when it comes to money can do wrong. That's the bottom line. So you want to have it to where you've got a lot of eyes looking, and that's why I've got the court and the judge in Fayette County will have to make the final approval on the sale of my land before it gets transferred. It can't transfer and then later on find out it was worth $2 million and it was sold for $300,000. Does that make sense? So you can put that clause in there, and your lawyer, your state lawyer, can back that up.
Okay, thank you.
My estate lawyer right now he had to go to the hospital this week. I rushed to the hospital. When he called me, he said, "Man, I'm sick." He had emergency surgery. I don't go to the hospital on emergency for a lot of folks, but he is important to me. And he just sent me a message. It's amazing. Just today, I've been discharged. That's a relief. I told him, do not die until I die, because I trust him. I trust, and it's hard to find people that you can trust when it comes to money. Just, it ain't playing. It ain't playing. A lot of people can't handle it.
Well, Jim, would you advise one legal person and then one family member? Would that work?
Just go with a qualified trustee. Don't even think about family. Take the word family out of it. It's nothing personal. Like on The Godfather, it's nothing personal, Sonny. It's strictly business. If it's a family member who happens to, if the trustee happens to be a family member, that's fine, if you trust them. But you don't need to have a trustee and some family member that's emotional, that doesn't understand what you want, and that will execute what you want. So it comes down to competence and trust. Can you trust this person? Have they displayed an ability to be mature? Can they handle stress? One of them, I'm going to be taken off, and I think she's smart as she can be, but I've seen her just in the last 2 years where she gets a little thrown off, which when I die, you know, it's going to be, I hope a lot of people are going to be sad, and she will probably be too, but when people are sad, they make bad decisions and can be taken advantage of. So you want somebody that can step in and say,
true.
He's dead, here's what he wanted, here's what we're going to do.
That first year, yeah.
Yeah, here's what the trust says. He's dead, and here's what we're going to do.
6 months.
Well, who are you? I'm the trust. It says right here, it's authorized right here with his notary. I'm the boss. Well, who made you the who? But you ain't even a Coleman. He said right here on this date, it's notarized with the lawyer right there. Otherwise, people will go crazy. Isn't that right, sister?
So by the show of hands, how many of you all would like for me to send you different questions for you to vet attorneys? Because I do have a list of questions and of resources that I could share out with everybody in this room. Because I do think it's important to vet your attorney. I mean, some of the stuff you could do on your own, but you really want a licensed, qualified attorney to handle some of those situations. The whole point of this educational process is really to get you to make different decisions and prepare for your meeting with the attorney, right? Like if you do a lot of that legwork of who you want to leave your assets to, you've done 90% of the work. The attorney is just the person that's going to overlook everything that you've done within your estate plan. So I really would like to schedule different seminars and workshops after this to address some of those things to get you all really thinking about estate and succession planning, especially for my farmers in here, right, who have businesses, business entities. You know, you really want to develop those plans and move forward and prepare for that meeting with your estate attorney. Were there other questions? I saw a couple of hands in the room too.
Yeah, anybody else?
Our farm is incorporated and we have roughly about 35 shareholders. We have a shareholders agreement. Does that shareholders agreement override a will or a trust? Because in the shareholders agreement, number one, their shares can only go to family. And there was one other thing I forgot. But anyway, in relation to a will or a trust, does the shareholders agreement hold up?
From what I've noticed with corporations, normally they have bylaws, for one, right? They have bylaws. So to answer your question, I think it's all intertwined within that trust. But I would say another thing with corporations, along with those bylaws and stakeholders, before you can move forward, is voting rights. So like they have to vote on certain things before you can make particular moves, depending on which stakeholder has the heaviest percentage or the highest percentage holds the most weight too, right? So I do think that's the advantage of a corporation. Can you ask that one more time?
If the shareholders agreement says one thing and the person's will says another as far as what's to happen with the property, does that shareholders agreement, because we're incorporated, take precedence over the person's will? Or can it, if we say in there that in the event of death, that this X, Y, and Z will happen to the property in the shareholders agreement, but the person who passed had something else. Which would work?
I'm not really sure on that one. That's a tough one to answer. Yeah, that's a tough one for me to answer. I would say if the person has a will, are they the sole owner of the corporation? Do they have any decision-making power as far as the person that has the will? Yeah, so if they have a succession, I mean, if they have like a strong succession plan in place, and they have a percentage of power, like let's say if that person that has a will has a 30% voting, of 30% stake within that corporation, that would be passed down if they do it properly to their children. Am I making sense, or? Okay. Because I don't really want to use too many personal examples, because everybody's situation is going to be different in this room as well.
Hello, I was just going to add to that because recently my father passed away, and so some of those estate things came up, and he had a couple of legal layers. And one of the things that I learned is depending on the laws at the time, so even addressing about the will and those kinds of things, it's really going to depend on what the law is in each jurisdiction. And then also like how the law is going to affect during the time that the will or said entity was developed at that time. So if it was developed in 1980 versus 2025, the laws may have changed. It's one of the things that I was advised was with the estate and estate planning and all of those kinds of things is you really want to, as Casey was talking about, Mr. Townsend was talking about, working with an attorney, as Mr. Coleman was talking about, because the laws can change. So it might have been established during this time period and the laws were applicable, but then later on they may adjust, and then not just waiting until that time, but periodically going and checking with your said attorney or legal official.
And I would also say, depending on which county you're in too, like you were talking about. So for example, and I'm just using it, but the probate process in Franklin County might be different than the probate process in Fayette County, for example. So those are some things to take note too, is looking over those probate processes depending on which county and state that you live in or where the real property is located, becoming well-versed in what those processes would look like for you. When it comes to developing your will, that can impact how you move forward as well. Okay. You got it?
Isn't it that most black families are losing their property because of taxation? Because in the community I'm from, we can't pay the taxes. The city values the land so high, it's not even worth it. So you got a piece of property, but the city has valued it, so it may be a piece of property, few $1,000s, and then the city makes it taxation. That's the way of getting black people to lose land. The taxation gets really high. For example, in this community I'm from, the whole community is like that. Taxations. And it's not worth it.
I think also because I think a lot of people in this room are probably, you want to go first? You good? You can go ahead.
That's been going on for a long time. Our family has owned that property since 4-digit numbers. And many of those people moved there together. And one of the things that the city will do is come cut your grass for $200. But they cut it only to 6 inches, to where they have to come back and cut it again. And so now you have people that don't have heirs and can't fix up the property, and that's how gentrification occurs. So now that property is taken for eminent domain, and it's now 5 times more than what was being paid. And that happens far too often. Oh, I did have another question, though.
Go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so similar situation. My father passed a year ago today.
Personal examples, though.
Well, so
make it
I have a question with that.
Okay.
So there was a fraudulent will that was bought, but we have a POA, and the POA has been standing for the past 2 years. So which one wins out?
What state are you referring to?
In Virginia.
So the state of Virginia. Now I can send you some resources of
Yes,
different
please.
heirs property laws that they have, because this is also a presentation with the Southern Regional Development Center, and so it's a conglomerate of us like doing research about this topic, and they have a lot of those situations that you're talking about with different infographics for Virginia, for Vermont, for Maryland, for North Carolina, for Kentucky is another one, where they have different steps that you could go about with dealing with fraudulent titles and things of that nature. So please, for everybody who are looking for resources from us, please, I think I put a survey out, and at the end of the presentation, you'll see it as well, so I can get your contact information and share whatever resources that you're looking for. Because everybody in this room is going to be looking for different things and different resources for support. But I think we were talking about the heirs property or as far as tax liens. That's what Dr. Dawson was talking about earlier with tax liens. A lot of times that happens because a lot of the heirs really don't decide on who's going to handle the payment of the taxes, right? and then if you never really reach an agreement, how can you contest what they have assessed the property for? Because sometimes they can assess it, like for example, that that's a $250,000 house when really the house is worth 70 or 80K. So you can contest how much how much they have indicated that the tax value is as well. Yes, sir.
Is it good to have revocable trusts?
I think it's just dependent on what age and stage you are in your life, and how many trustworthy family members that you have within your family. I think each situation is going to be different. And the reason why I say that is, so for example, let's say, and I guess I could use this as an example, my Aunt Sadie, right? She died at 88. She didn't have any children. She only has one other sibling that lives in California. So, I mean, which kind of trust might be good for her, right? Like, it's only so many people that she could pass her assets on to. So you have to keep that in mind as well. Like, who do I have? And is it the church that I leave? Some people leave their trust to their churches or to charitable organizations as well. So I think it's all contingent upon what your situation is in life. Does that make sense? Am I rambling?
Funny business, when I die, that I want Torch to be taken care of, first class. She's used to being taken good care of. I'm not going to have her high class one day, ghetto next. So my lawyer is going to put together a pet trust for Torch that's going to be able to have their current breeder that I bought her from, to have it to where for 15 years, there'll be a certain amount each year paid to the breeder and food and everything that Torch needs, veterinary care, for 15 years to make sure Torch is taken care of. Yeah, we got to be down to that, but that is hot, and that just happened in the state of Kentucky to be able to have a pet trust. We were one of the last states in the union to allow that, but today we can't even have a pet trust. As far as revocable, I think revocable is the best way because things change, relationships change. Your focus and caring about different organizations and what you want to do with your estate, that changes. So you want it to be permanent just in case you could die at any moment, but you also want the flexibility that if, over the next 10 years, if things change or on an annual basis things change and you want to direct it, you have that flexibility.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with a colleague of mine about an irrevocable trust at one point too, especially since the lady was much older. She was about 78. And I explained to her about the instrument of a revocable trust, but she was like, well, nah, my decision is final. I'm not falling out with my kids, so it's going to be an irrevocable trust because I don't know how much longer I have. So sometimes it just fit upon your situation too. But revocable is always like the most stable one, just in case something does change. But if you just make that strong decision, sometimes people will still choose an irrevocable one too.
If you owe money to somebody, can they go after you die over or before you die? Can they go over the revocable trust?
Well, from my understanding, that's the whole point of the trust instrument is to protect your personal assets. So for example, if a person owes medical bills, right? Like if a person is died of old age or, died for unforeseen circumstances, really they're suing that individual for those medical expenses personally. But if it's in a trust, the trust is the instrument that protects the individual's personal assets. That's the whole point. Well, there is a look back period. Remember, I don't know if I mentioned that early on. There is a look back period depending on when you establish the trust in certain situations. So they probably could, depending. I don't know. I have to get back to you on that. I would have to get back to you on that. But people use each instrument for different reasons, right? Because let's say if my mom was retiring and knows that, she's trying to plan for her retirement and also pass assets on to me, but she plans on being in a retirement facility. The question is, when does she establish that trust? Whether it's irrevocable or revocable, when does she establish it? Because Uncle Sam also looks at when you establish it too, right? Depending on how you set up your taxes and Social Security and so on, right? If I'm going to be depending on Medicare and things of that nature, it's almost as if you're getting certain government assistance. They want to know what assets you had before that. Does that make sense? They do look back. Maybe 5 years, sometimes 3 years, depending on the state.
This goes back to taxes. Let's say the land is divided into 4 plots, and 2 of the people move out of state. They don't pay any attention to the land for 20 years. The other people are paying the taxes on the land. Does that land automatically belong to the people paying the taxes after a period of time?
I know somebody, I won't say who, but I know someone who has experienced that. But I do think it's important to maintain those tax records. Like I do think you have to have strong tax records showing like accounting principles as far as where you paid those taxes from, the original receipts, and even the who, like as far as who paid it, what the amount was for, when. I think you want to have all of the information, but it can be possible. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we kind of going through something like that now, because like I say, my grandfather, he was taking care of this land, paying all the taxes. Now he's deceased. Then my father took over, and now my father's deceased. Now we paying it. So it was 2 tracks. It's a journey to my grandfather's land. But we've been taking care of the taxes, the upkeeping. But I called this county attorney, and the term he said was adverse possession. That term is adverse possession. It says that a person that's been taking care of the upkeeping of the land, paying the taxes, they can be that land can get awarded to them. But you'll probably have to go through, get an attorney, get a real estate attorney, because they know that terminology. They can measure and do all this. That's kind of what we're going through right now. I heard the term was called adverse possession, because you paying the taxes, keeping the upkeeping, because they said you paying the taxes and the wear and tear on your machine and the gasoline you paying, it should be awarded to you.
And you also be careful and let people do all that on your property for that reason too, because they can take it. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, she was just talking about pretty much encroachment, right? So when you notice somebody is encroaching on your land, so for example, if I built a fence on my neighbor's property line and she doesn't address it after a certain amount of time, I'm encroaching over her land, and I could then make that property mine if she doesn't address it, especially if I got it resurveyed, like we were talking about with surveying, and she didn't say anything after, I think in Kentucky it's like 7 years too. I think it's 7 years. So if you don't address that and go without saying something, it could get pretty nasty.
Thank you. And that brought up another thing, is being careful about what attorney you work with, and knowing who to go to. So when somebody passes, and again, this is just personal experience as well as some training, but my father had a trust. He had a will. There was property, there was a estate, there was a probate attorney. And so in going to the trust attorney knew a little bit about the probate, but in the end, it really needed to be a probate attorney. And that's something else to keep in mind when you're developing your wills, developing your trust, developing your succession planning, if you will, is what types of attorneys are for what. And it's kind of like with going to a doctor. You may have your primary care physician who's a family doctor or an internist, and they might be able to help you with your foot. But ultimately, you may need to go to a podiatrist in order to really get down to the root of the problem and really get it healing and getting all of that done. So it's very similar with the attorneys that you get. So whenever you're working through it, being sure that you speak with the right attorney, because it's not so much that the attorney doesn't care, but they may not know exactly all the fine-tuned details. And like we were talking about, it'll depend on the time, the state, the county, and like with the time limit on, the 7 years versus 5 years versus whenever. So just being careful with that.
Also, I might make some suggestions that will be helpful. And most of the times, it's very helpful to have a clear survey of your property with the survey pins in place and a good fence around your property. And when you get that good, clear survey of your property, make sure that that survey is recorded in the courthouse and stamped by a licensed surveyor. Otherwise, you may lose your property. And in the case of taxes, I have noticed that one time I had a piece of property, heirs property, and there are a bunch of people that hang around the courthouse to see if you don't pay your taxes. They will pay those taxes and do it for several years. Now, if you don't pay that person that's done that to you, and they can give you a bill for that, plus they add interest to it. And if you don't pay them, they'll wind up getting your property after a certain number of years. But you have to pay your taxes and make sure that your property is surveyed and recorded in that county where the property is located. And it should be done by a licensed surveyor with his name and his stamp and his number on it, so that it cannot be contested, because there are state laws regulating that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. We got about 6 minutes left. And thank you, Mr. Thomas, since you mentioned something about heirs property. I did pass out a sheet at your tables that talk about establishing by the show of hands, how many of you all have a family tree? You'll be surprised, many people don't. I think that's a good step to start with. I always advise a lot of clients that I've worked with in the past, whenever you're trying to, let me go back. Whenever you're trying to establish or first start the heir property process with identifying who owns a fractional interest, it's a good idea to start with a family tree. So I do have a handout there and can email you a copy of that if you want a copy of it. But I think that's a good start. Also, notating the date, that if people have passed away, notating the date that someone has passed. Also, if someone does pass within that family tree, identify their offspring as far as their descendants as well. So you want to identify it from the top of the tree down to who is living, right? So you don't necessarily have to go beyond the person that is living, because it stops at the fractional interest stops at the person that is living. So keep that in mind. And there are websites where you can digitize your family tree. I do think that's really important to have a copy of. Some of you can use what you call, Ancestry.com. They have like a digital version. You could use a free trial and develop that family tree. Now, you can also get other records, which a lot of people do, from the probate office. You can almost identify which heirs may be involved with the property from the land records office. Some people call it land records. Some people call it property value administrator, depending on which county it's located in, or the land records. But you can get those individuals' names, sometimes phone numbers, and even mailing address. That's important as well when you're trying to clear a title or a deed for a property. So I wanted to mention that. How many of y'all are familiar with the relending program for heirs property to the USDA? By the show of hands. Yes, how many of you all are familiar with the relending program through the USDA? It's called an heirs property relending program. So that could be a strategy to clear up a title or a deed issue for those folks who are trying to buy out fractional interest. But it does require a succession plan, which is why I want to discuss, especially with a lot of my farm owners in here today. If you do have title issues and you are able to identify those heirs with the family tree, you could look into doing the relending program. And I think within that program, the interest to borrow that money is like 1%. So it's a very low interest loan, and it's a good strategy to, especially if everybody is on board and you know who the heirs are. However, you have to buy them out, unfortunately. This could be a good tool and strategy for you to clear up the deed and title issues. So I believe your question was, would that pay for the taxes? I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the taxes. Normally, you want to maintain the taxes up until the time you try to close. And I think normally that's what creates heirs property. Excuse me. I think normally that's what creates heirs property, is for the fact that a lot of folks are unclear with whose responsibility it is to pay the taxes. But if you're interested and you have the resources, I would always say just pay it and keep a record of it. And even if the taxes are too high, you can always contest it. But we're running out of time here. Okay.
I have a USDA loan for my farm, and my taxes are not included in the payment, and I don't think they do that with any of their loans, but I'm not sure, but don't quote me on it, but they're outside. But also the Ancestry.com, you can get a free Ancestry.com access with your library in Fayette County. I know we have that, so that's another source. If you go to the library, you can use Ancestry all you want. My mom does genealogy.
But normally when you get a mortgage in general, normally they do what you call PITI, which is your principal balance, your interest, taxes, and insurance. So you could get your mortgage set up in that way after the closing, right? So like once you acquire the property, they do what you call PITI. Principal, can y'all say it with me? Principal, interest, taxes, and what else? Insurance. Yep. So to answer your question, no, they normally don't include the taxes, now that I think about it. Uniform Partition of Heirs Property Act, that's the act that I was mentioning earlier, where the corporations can't force a sale without identifying the heirs and giving them an opportunity to acquire the property. Kentucky is not one of those states, but there are 21 states currently that's negotiating or trying to enact the Uniform Partition Heir Properties Act. And my home state, North Carolina, finally will be enacting that law this year of 2026. So it is a big deal for, especially like in places like Arkansas. I wish I had enough time to show y'all the video, but in places like Arkansas and even in Kentucky, when people identify who the heirs are and they buy out their fractional interest, they force the sale, and that's how they normally take the land. But this particular law, they're able to protect, right, their family land. So those are the benefits of it, for the fact that you prevent the automatic partition, right, especially if a corporation owns 20 or more %, prevents unnecessary loss of ownership of all the heirs. So I do like the fact that they're given that first right of refusal. So for all my Kentucky folks, reach out to your legislators and see if they could really advocate to pass this particular uniform law. And then, of course, form numbers, reaching out to your local foreign service agency. Especially if you're trying to do the relending program, it's almost as if they want you to already have a succession plan in place where you're actively already farming. That can be an advantage for folks who are trying to handle heirs property issues, but it can also be an issue if you haven't already established it. This is just the same survey that I have out, so before we, I think we end right at 2, right? We're past time, right? Okay. So please, y'all, feel free to scan this QR code or fill out the hard copy at your table so I can stay in touch with you all. And that way I can send out any information that you might be looking for, as well as figure out which counties that you might want to see more workshops, more in depth, because it's kind of hard to cover all of this information in 45 minutes to an hour. So I would like to hear from you all and maybe come out to your counties and schedule some more in-depth workshops if I could. Yes, I wish I could scan that. Yeah, so if you scan it, my contact information, can I just tell you all? I'm surprised I didn't put it up there. Yep, so it does come up at the beginning of the survey. But my name is Casey, with a C, C-A-S-E-Y, .Townsend, and that's T-O-W-N-S-E-N-D, the number 1, at kysu.edu. And that's my my email. And then the phone number is the area code 502-597-6417. But yes, please, I will follow up, I promise you, with each and every one of you if you take the survey. That way I can follow up with you via email or even a phone call. But there's also, if you don't have a phone, there is a hard copy, and I could come around and grab it from your tables as well. Did anybody have any other questions or comments before we go? Okay. Can I hand you that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard when you become a certain age that you don't have to pay property taxes?
That's called the Homestead Act. So I always tell, like, for my folks, I believe it's like once you turn 65, they have what you call the Homestead Act. Yep, so it lowers your taxes. I have a friend that just, my friend Dan, they got super excited when he turned 65. He said, Casey, I only got to pay 33% of what my actual taxable value is due to the Homestead Act. So to answer your question, yes. Yes. One time. So as soon as you approach the age of 65, or if you haven't thought about it, but the deed does have to be in your name. The deed does have to be in your name, and the Homestead Act only applies to your residential property. So it doesn't really apply to your LLC or your business. It only applies to your your primary residence. Any other questions? Well, thank y'all so much for y'all time. I really appreciate y'all. And if you have the sheep, can y'all please stick them up high and I'll come around and grab them. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you. Man, I can't believe I saw you today, man.
Congratulations.
Yes, sir.
You give a good class.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
It's all right.
Yes, sir.
It's all right.
Good job, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. I look forward to having more conversation too with you.
All right. Y'all don't go anywhere yet. Mr. Chavis is going to give us a closing announcements, but I'm going to go ahead and say, if you hadn't filled out your survey, fill out your survey in the back of the agenda. Also, make sure you've signed in today. This is our last drawing. We need your demographics. We need to know who's been here so we know what to put on for next year. But with that being said, we have a few hats left. Oh, are we ready? Fred Hester. Gladys Bisona. Did I say that right? You're welcome, honey. Mateo Bennett. Is he still here? He was here. All right, I'll hold on to that for him. Chris Howard. Nope. Yep, there we go. David Moppin. Where's he at? He was just here. Nope, I ain't. I don't even know if I want to call these next two. I didn't pick these, by the way. David Miller. Should I throw it? Should I? Kevin Hocker. I didn't pick them, I promise. Listen now. Don't nobody want to know nothing about 212. All right, I'm going to get Edwin to come up here. Fill out the survey. Fill out the survey. Edwin, you want to come close them out? We're gonna save these for the next third Thursday.
I hope everyone have enjoyed themselves. Please go back to your respective counties and share some of this information. Thank you. Hope you have enjoyed the conference. As I said, try to encourage a family member to come with you. Okay? travel home safely.
We didn't call your name. We're pulling randomly. Everybody gets a hat. The survey you see on the screen is your final conference survey. Thank y'all. And last but not least, please make sure you retrieve the pumpkins from your table, the live ones. Don't take the fake ones, but all the live ones are for whoever wants them.